So as for the Democrats, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries delivered a passionate floor speech early Saturday morning, drawing a real contrast between the mutiny we saw play out among the Republicans and the steadfast unity among the Democrats.
The American people, understandably, after the events of this week, recognize that the Congress is at a fork in the road and are asking the question, what direction will we choose? I do not pretend to answer that question on behalf of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, but we do extend our hand of partnership to you and want to make clear that we extend and intend to try to find common ground whenever and wherever possible on behalf of the American people. I also want to make clear that we will never compromise our principles. House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, inclusion over isolation, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over QAnon, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, xenial over xenophobia, yes we can over you can't do it, and zealous representation over zero-sum confrontation. We will always do the right thing by the American people.
The
Constitution.
entire alphabet.
The Constitution over the cult.
That was a good one.
That's beautiful.
That was as good as it gets. It kind of sums everything up.
It does.
Joining us now, political strategist and MSNBC political analyst Juanita Tolliver, who says in a new piece for the GRIO that the real winner of this House Speaker fight is Hakeem Jeffries. Also with us, Professor of History and American Studies at Yale, Dr. Joanne Freeman, whose new piece for the New York Times is entitled, "It's Tempting to Laugh at McCarthy's Struggles, but History Shows That This Type of Chaos is Not a Joke." And that's been a big part of the conversation as to whether this chaos is just, the process, democracy is ugly, or is it a signal of worse to come?
Yep, and we're going to find out very quickly today. Juanita Tolliver, thank you so much for being with us. You make a great point in that you have the chaos over the past 4 or 5 days on the Republican side, and then a very clean view of what Democrats stood for and what Hakeem Jeffries stood for. What a massive contrast.
A massive contrast, and it's a contrast that Democrats are going to continue to drive home for the next 2 years, because we know the Republican conference is going to continue to sink into this chaos. And I love that clip that you all played of Hakeem Jeffries, because he summed it up perfectly. He laid out every single way that Republicans will likely continue to fail the American public, but drew the contrast for Democrats. And that's one of his 2 mandates. The other mandate that he demonstrated perfectly throughout all 15 rounds of voting is keeping the Democratic caucus unified. And what he showed is that this caucus is behind him, they respect him, and they're ready to fight the fight to protect the American people from what we know will be a destructive agenda from Republicans.
So, Professor Freeman, good morning. Jonathan Lemire here. So, as just teased, your piece here suggests that some real chaos could be coming out of the tumult that we saw in the fight for speakership. It ended with Kevin McCarthy. That might begin today with the battle over the rules. But tell us the lessons that history provides here and what you're concerned about just how ungovernable the House Republican Party might now be and how that could be trouble for the country?
Sure. Well, when you look over the long haul of American history and look for other contests, speakership contests that were like this one, it's not by accident that most of them are before the Civil War. They're normally caused by party chaos in some way or another. And it doesn't have to be one party rupturing. It can be, as in the 1850s, you have a lot of different parties, and in one way or another, it becomes difficult to elect a speaker. But what's interesting and what's different now from many of those cases in the 1850s is that in those cases, there was a clear issue at stake that was being debated, and that was the issue of slavery. So, for example, in the 1856 contest for the speakership, in the end, they took the three main candidates for the speakership and they asked them explicitly to get up in front of Congress and state their view on congressional legislation on slavery. So there you're having, in a sense, a debate over policy, and then you have people, in Congress, in the House, are able to decide what they want in one way or another. What we saw here wasn't grounded that way, which isn't to say that the small group of people holding out don't have issues and don't have ideas that they'd like to put in play. Of course they do. But what we saw was a power struggle within the Republican Party. And so the question now is, given the proclivities of that group of people, and given that in many ways they're not necessarily friendly to the institutions of government, what happens next, I don't know.
Yeah, and Charlie Sykes, unfortunately, a lot of us don't know. And Charlie, you and I, and I'm sure some Democrats could be very supportive of some of the procedural safeguards that are going to be put into effect that actually get us closer to regular order, that make those massive omnibus bills more transparent, that give members more time to read the bills, that may allow more amendments on the floor. We'll wait and see if that happens. But as we've been talking about all morning, also they're talking about going after the intel community, starting what they would call witch hunts against the very people who protect our country simply because, well, Donald Trump may have broken the law, and they had to actually examine that. And this comes, of course, after Barr already let Durham use the Department of Justice and all of its resources to strike out time and time again as he undertook a war on the intel community. But now Republicans coming back, doing it again, wanting to slash defense spending. You would think this would be something conservatives in the party would have a problem with. Do you think we'll hear from any of them in the House?
Well, we'll find out today when the rules vote takes place. But I mean, the real men of political genius who are now running the Republican Party are not just going after the military and intel. Now they're pivoting to, threatening a debt crisis and demanding cuts in Social Security and Medicare. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with all of that? I mean, I think that the chaos that you saw in the House last week is just a small preview of what the next 2 years are going to look like. I mean, there are now, I think, legitimate questions about whether or not the House of Representatives will be able to execute its most basic functions, paying the bills, keeping the nation from going into debt default, all of those things that, should be automatic. Kevin McCarthy has created a situation where it's going to be very, very difficult to just do the normal job of legislating. I mean, look, I think it's a good idea. The legislators should be able to read the bills. But when you put 3 members of the Freedom Caucus on the Rules Committee, when you basically give a veto power to any individual in that caucus, it's going to be almost impossible for Kevin McCarthy to compromise, to negotiate, to make deals, or to actually do the job of governing. And I think that people ought to realize that we're moving, as of today, it's not just about Kevin McCarthy anymore. It is about how much chaos and dysfunction that we're going to be seeing in this country over the